Originally built in 1820 and opened as the Surrey House of Correction, the living conditions inside Brixton Prison were once considered to be the worst in London. Join us as we dive over the prison wall and take a look at the 15 most infamous prisoners held inside London's Brixton Prison. Drop a comment down below and let me know what you think about these crazy convicts. I do read every single comment, and you can now buy the Vidello Productions mugs. So there will be a link down in the description below, and to be honest, they're not bad. Number 15. Pierce McCauley. This provisional IRA member became one of the most famous inmates at Brixton between 1991 and 1992 after planning a daring escape while being held on remand. In 1991, McCauley was in Brixton Prison in London awaiting trial on charges related to a suspected plot to assassinate Sir Charles Tidbury, a former brewery company chairman. On July 7th, 1991, he and his cellmate Nessan Quinlivven escaped from the prison. The escape involved the two men shooting their way out. Following the escape, the Crown Prosecution Service later announced it would not seek his extradition on the charges related to the Brixton escape. Number 14. Kahia Healey. A politician who was imprisoned on two separate occasions, his first stint inside prison occurred in May 1922. Healey was a leading member of the Sinn Féin movement in Ulster and was appointed to a provisional government's North Eastern Advisory Committee. His membership on this committee and his efforts to prepare a case for Fermanagh to be included in an Irish state led to him being viewed as a threat by Unionist authorities. He was imprisoned on a converted cargo vessel in Belfast, the Argenta, along with about 500 other Republican suspects. Healey claimed his arrest was for political reasons, specifically for his work in preparing the case for Fermanagh and Tyrone's inclusion in the Irish Free State. He remained in custody until February 1924, despite being elected as an MP in the UK general elections of 1922 and 1923. The second internment took place in July 1941 during World War II. Healey was interned in Brixton Prison for 18 months under the Defence of the Realm Act. His internment was a result of a letter he wrote to a parish priest in Fermanagh that was intercepted, in which he discussed the likelihood of a German victory. Number 13. Mick Jagger. In 1967, Mick Jagger was arrested on drug charges after a police raid on fellow Rolling Stones member Keith Richards' home, Redlands, in West Sussex, England. The raid was tipped off by a reporter from the tabloid newspaper News of the World, which was already in a legal dispute with Jagger over a previous story. On February 12, 1967, a large group of police officers led by Detective Sergeant Norman Pilcher raided the Redlands party. The police found very little evidence of illegal activity. Jagger was charged with the illegal possession of 4 amphetamine pills he had purchased in Italy, and Richards was charged with allowing his home to be used for the purpose of smoking cannabis. An art dealer, Robert Fraser, was also charged with possessing heroin. During the court case, the prosecution tried to portray the party as a wild, drug-fueled event, with a particular focus on the fact that Jagger's girlfriend, Marian Faithfull, was found naked and wrapped in a fur rug. This detail was widely sensationalized by the press, most famously spawning the apocryphal Mars Bar rumour. On June 29, 1967, Jagger was sentenced to 3 months in prison for possession of amphetamines, while Richards received a 1-year sentence. Following his conviction, Mick Jagger was taken in handcuffs to Brixton Prison, where he spent 1 night in a cell. Richards was sent to Wormwood Scrubs Prison. Both were granted bail the following day, pending an appeal. The harsh sentences sparked a public outcry. On July 1st, 1967, a now famous editorial by William Rees-Mogg, the editor of The Times, was published under the headline, "Who Breaks a Butterfly on a Wheel?" The editorial argued that Jagger's sentence was excessively severe and that he was being unfairly treated as a scapegoat for his generation's changing morals. This influential piece of journalism is widely credited with helping to sway public opinion and ultimately influencing the appeals court's decision. On July 31st, 1967, the Court of Appeals overturned Richards's conviction and reduced Jagger's sentence to a conditional discharge. Number 12. Bertron Gasho. In 1991, Formula One driver Bertron Gasho was convicted and sentenced to prison following a road rage incident. The event led to a major turn in F1 history when he was replaced by a then unknown driver, Michael Schumacher, who would go on to become a 7-time world champion. The incident occurred in December 1990 at Hyde Park Corner in London. Gasho, on his way to a meeting, was involved in a minor collision with a taxi driver. A verbal and physical altercation ensued. Gasho claimed that the taxi driver threatened him and grabbed his tie, at which point he sprayed the man in the face with a CS gas canister, which is illegal in the UK. He was arrested and charged with assault occasioning actual bodily harm and possession of a prohibited weapon. In August 1991, Gasho's case went to trial. Despite his lawyer's belief that he would receive a fine or a suspended sentence, he was sentenced to 18 months in prison. He was taken to Brixton Prison, which he described as a harsh environment where he was locked in his cell for 23 hours a day, with no table, no toilet, and no control over the light. After a period in Brixton, he was moved to another less severe prison. The unexpected prison sentence meant he would miss the upcoming Belgian Grand Prix, which created a sudden vacancy at the Jordan Grand Prix team. Gasho served 2 months of his sentence before his conviction was reduced on appeal. He was released just before the Japanese Grand Prix, but had already lost his seat at Jordan. Number 11. Nessan Quinlivven. A member of the Provisional Irish Republican Army, Quinlivven was arrested in October 1990 at Stonehenge, Wiltshire, alongside his cellmate Pierce McCauley, after a year-long search by the anti-terrorist squad. He was charged with conspiracy to murder and conspiracy to cause explosions. He was then held on remand in Brixton Prison. However, on July 7th, 1991, Quinlivven and McCauley escaped. They were attending Catholic Mass and were being escorted back to their unit when McCauley produced a gun that had been smuggled into the prison in a training shoe. The two men took a prison officer hostage, fired shots, and used the officer's keys to access the main part of the prison. They then scaled the prison wall, which was topped with razor wire, and escaped into a nearby residential area. During their escape, they shot and wounded a prison officer and a civilian, the driver of a car they commandeered. They abandoned the car after finding their route blocked and took a taxi to an underground station. After the escape, Quinlivven fled to the Republic of Ireland. He was arrested there in April 1993 on firearms charges and was sentenced to 4 years in prison. He was later released from prison in November 1996 as part of an early release program for Republican prisoners. The British government sought his extradition to face the original charges of conspiracy to murder and to cause explosions, as well as the new charges related to the escape. However, in August 2009, the Crown Prosecution Service announced that it was no longer seeking the extradition of either Quinlivven or McCauley, citing reasons including the length of time since the acts took place and the availability of evidence. Number 10. Marian Price. Marian Price was an Irish Republican activist who was involved in a bombing campaign in London in 1973. Along with her sister Dolores, she was a member of a provisional Irish Republican Army unit that placed 4 car bombs in London on March 8, 1973. The bombs targeted the Old Bailey courthouse and an army recruitment centre, injuring over 200 people, including one who died from a heart attack. Marian Price and her sister, along with 7 other members of the unit, were arrested as they were boarding a flight to Ireland on the day of the bombing. They were subsequently tried and convicted at Winchester Castle on November 14, 1973, and sentenced to 2 life terms. Immediately following her sentencing, Price and her co-defendants went on a hunger strike. Their goal was to be transferred to a prison in Northern Ireland, where they believed they would be granted special category status, a status they considered to be a form of political prisoner status. This would have allowed them certain rights, such as wearing their own clothes and not being forced to perform prison labour. The hunger strike lasted for over 200 days, during which time Price was held at Brixton Prison. For 167 of those days, she was force-fed by prison authorities. The force-feeding caused her to suffer from anorexia and tuberculosis, and her weight dropped significantly. In 1980, after serving 7 years of her sentence, Marian Price was released from prison on a royal prerogative of mercy due to her severe ill health, which was deemed life-threatening. She was transferred to a prison in Northern Ireland before her release. Number 9. Jimmy Moody. In the 1970s, Jimmy Moody was both an English gangster and hitman, best known for being a member of a criminal group known as the Chainsaw Gang, which was involved in armed robberies. In 1980, Moody was in Brixton Prison awaiting trial for his role in the gang. While incarcerated at Brixton, Moody and 2 other inmates, Gerard Tweet, a member of the Provisional Irish Republican Army, IRA, and a man named Stanley Thompson, escaped on December 17, 1980. The escape involved tunnelling from a cell into the prison yard and then scaling the outer wall. Moody was never recaptured. After his escape, he became a hired assassin for the IRA, despite not having any political convictions himself. He remained on the run until he was murdered in 1993. Number 8. Udam Singh. Udam Singh, an Indian revolutionary, was known for assassinating Michael O'Dwyer, the former Lieutenant Governor of the Punjab in India. The assassination was an act of retaliation for the Jallianwala Bagh massacre in Amritsar in the year 1919, for which O'Dwyer was responsible. On March 13, 1940, O'Dwyer was scheduled to speak at a meeting at Caxton Hall, London. Udam Singh attended the event with a concealed revolver inside a book with cut-out pages. As the meeting concluded, Singh shot O'Dwyer twice, with 1 bullet killing him instantly. Singh also wounded 3 others in the shooting: Louis Dane, Lord Zetland and Lord Lamington. Singh was immediately arrested at the scene. On April 1st, 1940, Singh was formally charged with murder and remanded in custody at Brixton Prison. While in prison, he used the name Ram Mohammed Singh Azad, which reflected his anti-colonial beliefs. He also went on a hunger strike for 36 days. During this time, he was force-fed by authorities. Udam Singh's trial began on June 4th, 1940. He was convicted and sentenced to death. Despite a court appeal that was dismissed, he was hanged on July 31st, 1940 at Pentonville Prison, London. Number 7. Oswald Mosley. Oswald Mosley was a British politician and the founder and leader of the British Union of Fascists, a political party formed in 1932 and later changing its name to hand its name to the National Socialists in 1936 and 1937. He was not arrested for a specific crime like assault or theft, but rather was interned by the British government at the outbreak of World War II under wartime emergency regulations. Mosley's crime was being the leader of a British fascist organisation that was seen as a potential threat to national security, particularly in the event of a German invasion. His British Union of Fascists, also known as the Black Shirts, openly espoused anti-Semitic and pro-Nazi ideology. The organisation's activities, which included provocative rallies and street violence, were a source of concern for the British authorities. Following the outbreak of World War II and with the Battle of France underway, the British government passed Defence Regulation 18B. This law allowed for the arrest and detention of individuals suspected of being a threat to the country without the need for a trial. Under this regulation, on May 23, 1940, Mosley and his wife, Diana Mosley, along with many other high-ranking members of the BUF, were arrested. Oswald Mosley was initially taken to Brixton Prison. His time there was part of a larger internment of hundreds of BUF members. The conditions for these internees were a subject of some controversy, as some reports suggested they were given preferential treatment, such as being allowed to smoke and play sports. In December 1940, Mosley was transferred to Holloway Prison, where he was able to live with his wife Diana in a private house on the prison grounds. This special arrangement was granted due to his ill health. Mosley's time in prison ended in November 1943 when he was released on the grounds of poor health. The decision to release him was met with public outrage and led to a large-scale political debate in the House of Commons. Critics argued that his release was an injustice and a betrayal, particularly given the ongoing war against Nazi Germany. After his release, Mosley was placed under house arrest and was forbidden from engaging in political activity. His reputation was irrevocably tarnished by his association with fascism, and his political career was effectively over. He moved abroad after the war, living for many years in France and Ireland. Number 6. Terrence Maxwiny. Maxwiny was a key figure in the Irish Republican movement. He was the Lord Mayor of Cork and a commandant of the Irish Republican Army in the city. On August 12, 1920, he was arrested in Cork City Hall for possessing seditious articles and documents and a cipher key for coded messages. The British authorities viewed his activities as a threat to their rule in Ireland. After his arrest, Maxwiny was court-martialed and sentenced to 2 years in prison. He was then transported to England and placed in Brixton Prison. From the day of his arrest, Maxwiny began a hunger strike, refusing to eat in protest of his imprisonment and the authority of the British military court that sentenced him. He declared, "I shall be free, alive or dead, within the month." His hunger strike drew immense international attention, turning him into a symbol of the Irish struggle for independence. The British government faced growing pressure from around the world to release him, with protests and appeals for intervention from countries in Europe, the Americas, and even the Vatican. His case became a major propaganda coup for the Irish Republican cause. As his health deteriorated, the British authorities considered force-feeding him. However, they ultimately decided against it due to the potential potential backlash. Terrence Maxwiny died in Brixton Prison on October 25, 1920, after 74 days on hunger strike. His body was laid in a London cathedral where tens of thousands of people paid their respects. Number 5. Imran Ahmad Khan. A former British Member of Parliament, Khan was convicted of a sexual offence that occurred before he was elected to office. The assault took place in January 2008 at a party at a house in Staffordshire. According to the court case, Khan forced the boy to drink gin and tonic, dragged him upstairs and pushed him onto a bed before assaulting him. The victim did not make a formal complaint at the time, but the details of the incident all came flooding back after Khan was elected as a Member of Parliament in the 2019 general election. The victim then went to the police. Khan was charged in June 2021 and, following a trial at Southwark Crown Court, was found guilty in April 2022. He resigned as an MP a month later on May 3, 2022. On May 23, 2022, Imran Ahmad Khan was sentenced to 18 months in prison. He was taken to Brixton Prison to serve his sentence. The judge in the case, Mr. Justice Jeremy Baker, stated that Khan had shown no remorse for his actions. Khan's legal team launched an appeal against both his conviction and sentence. In December 2022, his appeal was dismissed by the Court of Appeal. He was released from prison in February 2023 after serving 9 months, which is half of his 18-month sentence. Number 4. Stephen Bear. Stephen Bear, an English television personality, was convicted of an offence that involved sharing a private video of his former girlfriend, Georgia Harrison. The incident occurred in August 2020 when Bear and Harrison had consensual sex at his home in Loughton, Essex. The act was recorded on Bear's CCTV cameras without Harrison's knowledge. After the encounter, Harrison told Bear not to share the footage, but he later uploaded it to his OnlyFans account and also shared it on WhatsApp. According to the court, Bear was motivated by a desire to profit from the footage, as he had monetized his OnlyFans account. He was charged with voyeurism and 2 counts of disclosing private sexual photographs and films with the intent to cause distress. He was found guilty by a jury in December 2022. On March 3, 2023, Bear was sentenced to 21 months in prison. He was initially sent to HM Prison Chelmsford, but was later transferred to HM Prison Brixton in August 2023. In addition to his prison sentence, he was also ordered to sign the sex offender register for 10 years and was given a restraining order that prevents him from contacting Harrison for 5 years. He was released from prison early on licence on January 17, 2024, after serving a little over 10 months of his sentence. Number 3. Archibald Maul Ramsay. Ramsay's imprisonment stemmed from his leadership of a group called the Right Club. The group's stated purpose was to oppose and expose the activities of organised Jews. The group was formed in 1939 and its members were considered anti-Semitic and pro-fascist. The motto of the club was Perish Judah. Ramsay was involved with Tyler Kent, a cipher clerk at the American Embassy in London, who was stealing top-secret documents. Ramsay planned to leak correspondence between Winston Churchill and Franklin Roosevelt with the intention of discouraging US support for Britain in the war. British intelligence services had already infiltrated the Right Club and were aware of these activities. Ramsay was arrested on May 23, 1940 under Defence Regulation Section 18B, he was the only sitting British MP to be interned under this regulation. Following his arrest, Ramsay was lodged in Brixton Prison. He was imprisoned along with other right-wing extremists, including Oswald Mosley. The government's decision to intern Mosley and other BUF members, as well as Ramsay, was a response to the perceived threat they posed to national security as the war escalated. Ramsay was released in September 1944. He had been detained for over 4 years. After his release, he attempted to return to politics, but his reputation was permanently damaged by his internment and his association with the Right Club. Number 2. Roger Caseasement. Roger Caseasement, an Irish nationalist and former British diplomat, was a central figure in the lead-up to the 1916 Easter Rising. His actions, which were viewed as treason by the British government, led to his arrest and a highly publicised trial. Caseament's crimes were related to his efforts to secure German military assistance for the Irish independence movement during World War I. While in Germany, he attempted to organise an Irish brigade from among Irish prisoners of war to fight against the British. He was also instrumental in arranging for a shipment of arms to be sent to Ireland to support the planned rebellion. On April 21, 1916, 3 days before the Easter Rising was due to begin, Caseasement landed on Banner Strand in County Kerry, having been put ashore by a German U-boat. He was in poor health and was quickly discovered and arrested by members of the Royal Irish Constabulary. He was charged with high treason. Following his arrest, Caseasement was taken to the Tower of London, and on May 18, 1916, he was transferred to Brixton Prison to await trial. While at Brixton, Caseament's defence team, including his lawyer George Gavin Duffy, worked tirelessly to prepare his case. The trial was a major legal and political event, with his defence centred on the argument that the 1351 Treason Act, under which he was charged, did not apply to his actions, which had occurred outside the British realm. During Caseament's incarceration, the British authorities covertly circulated what became known as the Black Diaries. These diaries, which detailed Caseament's homosexual activities, were used to undermine his reputation and discredit the international campaign for clemency. Caseament's trial for high treason began on June 26, 1916. Despite a vigorous defence, he was found guilty. He was the only leader of the 1916 Easter Rising to be tried in England, and the only one to be hanged instead of being shot by a firing squad. He was sentenced to death, and on August 3, 1916, he was executed by hanging at Pentonville Prison in London. His body was buried in quicklime within the prison grounds. His remains were not returned to Ireland until 1965. Number 1. Dolores Price. Along with her sister Marian and 7 other members of an IRA unit, Dolores Price placed 4 car bombs, 2 of which detonated, injuring over 200 people in London in 1973. On March 8, 1973, the day of the bombings, Price and her co-conspirators were arrested at Heathrow Airport as they were about to board a flight to Ireland. They were tried and convicted at Winchester Castle on November 14th, 1973, and originally sentenced to life imprisonment. This was later reduced to a 20-year sentence. Following their conviction, Price, her sister Marian, and 2 other men immediately began a hunger strike. Their demand was to be moved to a prison in Northern Ireland, a status that would have given them certain certain rights, such as not having to perform prison labour and being allowed to wear their own clothes. The strike lasted for over 200 days, during which time Price was held at Brixton Prison. For 167 of those days, Price and her sister were force-fed by prison authorities. The process involved being tied down by 4 male prison officers, having their jaws clamped open and having a tube inserted down their throats to deliver liquid nourishment. This experience had a lasting impact on her health. In 1975, the Price sisters, along with 2 other hunger strikers, were moved to prisons in Northern Ireland. In 1981, Dolores Price was released from prison after serving 7 years. She was released on humanitarian grounds due to her severe ill health, specifically anorexia nervosa, which was a result of the hunger strike and force feeding by prison authorities. Thanks for watching. We have hundreds more true crime videos and you can check out 2 of them in the boxes above. Remember to subscribe with notifications as we have videos publishing every week and will soon begin publishing videos on Wednesdays.